Okay. So in services, mostly they ask the straightforward question, what is service? And then mostly they'll be covering the services part in this topic, sharing data between the components, right? So there itself we'll be touching the services. So because one of the way to share data between components is through services, right? So
You record to just to see a need for future.
yeah, I started recording.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, so basically we cover services in data sharing part, and mostly we basically create services only to write some business logic or like backend communication related code we write in services, right? So it's not that uh, services do not do anything with the user interface related things like the template related things or template data binding. So all these are not related to services. So only components will basically associate with the template or view. They basically kind of in sync with the view and the component will be in sync, but not the services. Services are purely to handle backend tasks, or if you have, let's say, some common logic, and you'll be calling that common logic from multiple components, then you'll be writing a service. Okay. Otherwise, components are just enough. And you can write same logic what you plan to write in services inside the templates also, like the components also, because let's say you want to call some backend API, let's say student API you want to call, right? You can basically inject that HTTP client service in the component and you can call it from here itself from the components. But the main reason services came is just to write reusable code. Okay, because the same student service you can call from multiple components. For example, student list component, a student details component, right? So you'll be calling multiple APIs which are related to the student API, like listing the student and getting single student details and posting a student data to create student record, and all this are related to student API, right? So all these things you can put in one single service, and you call it student service, and then you put all these things there so that your code is well organized, and multiple components you can inject this service and you can start using it, right? So that way you can basically organize the code and you can reuse the code, which you don't have to write every time. And for that purpose we use services, and that is the answer for the straightforward question, what is service and why we need services. And one important topic they ask about ask when the services topic comes is dependency injection. Okay, so how these services will be injected, because basically when we work with components, we'll be working with the dependency injection as well. Like you'll be injecting services, you'll be injecting what else we inject, right? So some custom if you write custom services, you'll be injecting manually. But let's say you want to inject built-in service like HTTP client service, or some other things. What else we have other than the HTTP service? Change detector service we have. So there are many built-in classes or services. So Angular provides us. So basically, we can call them to um, basically we can inject them to the components, and then we can use it there. But but when it comes to the services, then we'll come across this syntax, right? So if for components we see at the rate component, but when it comes to services, then only we see this. Even directives also we see this syntax, but directive syntax is similar to that of component. Okay, so this is similar to component, because component the difference between this and this is they'll not have template and styles. Everything else is same, and the functioning also same. But whereas these services, right, they don't have a selector also. So it is like in a pure TypeScript class, and it will have only your code or your business logic. So So when it comes to the services, so all services are injectable. So it's not at the rate service. So it's injectable. So you can create anything, any class. So they named it generically so that it's not only service. If you want to implement some kind of a class where it will have all the constants for your application, then that also injectable, right? So that also can be injectable. So that's the reason they named it as generic name, injectable. And this is this special param they have provided in. So this will tell whether that service is available across the application or only in that module or only in that component. Okay, basically injector service or like injector the structure or injector what we can call the injector tree, right? So that is basically it's like a tree. When you're injecting a service or creating a service, and this is called the registration of the service. Okay, you're registering your service with the application. Okay, when you say it is a root here, then that service is injected with the root injector, a root level injector. So assume that is a tree. If you go to services, right? Yeah. So we have image here. So whenever you have that at the rate injector provided in root, then that will be registered with the injector service or injector module. We can call it module. So injector module inside the Angular framework. So when it is registered, it will maintain a structure of tree so that, so if you say root, that then it will be available across the application. And if you don't provide a root, then you can provide module level service injection. So only in that specific module you can inject that service. Or if you don't want to inject it module level, then you can inject it component level. Okay. So in that level, only in that component you can use or inject that service. So it's like a tree. So and in that whole tree structure, where you want to inject or which level you want to inject the services, depending on what you configured. If you say provider root like this, then it will be injected application level. If you don't want to inject the application level, then what you can do is you can remove this part and just put injectable. Okay, then what you can do is you can go to that ng module, and then there is a providers section, right, in the um, modules. Let me open application and see. Yeah, in the app module, see here we have providers section. Okay, so in that providers section, it is an array. Okay, so it can basically have a list of services which are going to be available in this module, or in this module means in the declaration section, whatever components and services pipes you declared. So in all these classes or components, this service will be injectable. Okay, if you put this service hello service here, okay, and that hello service can be injectable in all in the declaration section, whatever pipes, directives and components you declare, right? So all those places you can basically inject the service, but you cannot inject this in other modules. Let's say you have some other feature module, also student module. Okay, so in the student module you cannot use this one unless you provide this service in the provider section of the student module as well. Okay, but if you put at the rate injectable provider in root, then you don't have to do this one, because by default the service will be at the root level, so that it will be injected automatically. You can go to the component and you can basically go to your constructor and you can say hello service directly here, private hello service, so it will be injected. But if you don't provide that provider in root as root, then you have to manually go to the module and you have to put it here in the providers. So that is the second way of injecting service. Okay, first way is at defining at root level. Second way is you don't want to define root level, so remove that there, and put it here so that it will be injected only in this module, injectable only in this module. And third way is you don't want to put it here also, that's fine. Just go to any component, okay, and just put comma here and add one more param. Okay, so we have providers, right? So in here you can basically put an array and say hello service. Okay, this is third way. So now when you put it here, then you can only inject the service in here. Okay, now if you go take this one and go to some other component and try to inject there, it will not work because you are providing only in here. So this is the third way of injecting a service. So these are the three ways we can basically restrict the access level of a service across your application modules or application components or application level itself. So this is how the injectors will work. So just try to remember this thing, because if the injector concept comes, they'll ask this thing definitely. How can you inject service to a specific module, or how can you inject a module to a specific component? I don't want to make it available for all the modules, right? So this way they'll ask. And the other advantage of having this is, let's say, they'll ask a tricky question also, because let's say you define some variable. Let me find a service. Yeah, we have employee service here. So instead of hello service, let me say employee service. Employee service. And let me inject employee service here. And go to app component. Okay, fine. So we don't have it here. Now let me go here. So the provider in is root here, right? So let me remove this. I can just say injectable. Okay. Now, if I try to use this service somewhere, then somewhere like this here, without providing it here, then it will not work basically. So Hindi serve port 5001. So the tricky question, the trick part I was saying, right? So they'll ask, I want to inject a service instance to multiple components, but they must be separate instances of that service. Okay, so basically when you register a service with root level, then what will happen, the Angular will create only one instance of that service, and wherever you inject across the application, only that instance will be injected. That means if you set some variable from component A, and the same value you can access in component B, because it's the same instance, right? But in case of this way, if you define only here in the component, then a separate instance of that service will be injected here, and a separate instance of service will be injected to the component B. Okay. So now what will happen if you set some value of variable inside the service in this component, then that will not be accessible in other component, the component B, because the component access, the service instance accessed by the component B is entirely separate. So if you set value there also, it is separate instance, and that value will be there, and this value will be here, and they won't clash, or they won't have the same reference. So basically both are different. Okay. So it is compiled. Let me go and see in the browser. Localhost 5001. This dot hs dot Get user list dot subscribe a. And let's use this one. The components will not be initialized unless until you use it somewhere. So you can create any number of components, but if you are not using it somewhere, then it will not basically it will not have the instances created. So now you see the exception is coming. No provider for employee service. Okay. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to inject this service. The error is null injection error because the application or the Angular doesn't have instance of this application. It is thinking it is trying to inject null here, and it is throwing there is no provider provided for this service. So now what we can do, we go to the employee service, and we can either set the provider into root so that it will be available across the application, or we can go here and we can put it here, employee service, and let me save it. So see, now the error is gone. Because we provided it in the provider section of the module. Or I can remove it again and see, I can see the error, right? So let me go here, yeah, in this component, and let me provide it here. Providers. Done. Now also that error gone because we provided here. Now let me basically use the same provider in some other component. Let's go to student list component, and here, yeah, it is already provided. Okay, so let's use this component without providing it, because if you are not using the component, it will not be created, right? The instance is not created and will not see the error. So let's go to the app component.html, and let's use it here. Now it is throwing error for the student list, because in the student list we are using the service, but we did not provide. Okay, now let's provide here as well. Okay, now error will go away, and I can see the data is coming from the some backend API. Now what I want to do is I want to open the service here, and let me create a variable called test variable string. Okay, I want to set some value in the string and try to access from the other service. Okay, so in the contact as let me set it here, this dot hs dot test variable equals test value, and let me go to student list, and let me try to print console.log this dot eps dot test variable. Okay, so it should print that value. Okay, so basically it is printing undefined here. Okay, we click on it, it will go to the same line, this line number 16. It is printing undefined because the service instance provided to the student list and service instance provided to contact as box is entirely different. So we set value from this component, contact as component, but the instance is different here. That's the reason it is getting null. So you want to now if you try to print value here, console.log this dot HS star test variable. Here it will print. Here it will print the value because we are accessing the same service instance here. Okay, so that's the difference. I just went into a little deep here because I want you to show how the injector the tree works. Okay, so any questions here?
No, yeah, understood.
Okay.
I actually we when we did the project, we didn't do that. Service creating service one. Can you like just send that file to check me the code, and the one which you're showing, no, that using the student you use some API also, no, general API. I
Correct.
want to some simple service which you created and how you injected that one. If you
Okay.
send, yeah,
I
just friends.
you want to see that example?
Yeah, I want to see the code once again, the entire file. Like I just said, can you send me separately, like to check later?
Okay. I think I pushed this code to the GitHub, but anyhow, let me check and let me push it again. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's so the so there are only two questions from the services. One is straightforward, what is the service and what is the need of service. So basically to write some backend tasks or any common logic if you want to have between components, then you'll use the services. And the other thing is the dependency injection. Okay. And not only services. Okay, so they made it generically so that you can create any class or enum, and they can you put on top of this, and then you can inject that. Okay, so it is that's the reason they put it generically. So these are the two questions they ask about it. And another question is sharing data between two components, and one way is to use the service and share data, right? So anyhow, that services related concepts will be covered when you're answering this question, sharing data between. Okay. So yeah, I think you already know this, right? So how to share data between two components. So I don't want to go into that. The only thing is you have some questions about the subjects and observables.
So for the injectable, you said some like two tricky question. You said no how to access. Can you just like you had like created one notepad? No, can I just add that these questions?
Okay.
Like the same injectable inject question, like how which level how we can access. We're telling in between the discussing. Will
Yeah,
explain.
sure. The question about this thing is services or singleton in Angular, but can you inject separate instances to multiple components? Okay. Yeah, let's move on to the observables and subjects. So whatever we do in Angular, right? So it is just like setting a value and using it. Even when we talk about sharing data between components using a service, so you put from because it's a singleton, there will be only one instance across the entire application in browser. So you can basically access that class or the service and set value variable a to some value. And when you try to access the same variable from different instance of component or different component, then you get same value set by the previous component. So that's how basically we share data. Now, using observables and subjects, right? So these are like, we have something like unicasting and multicasting in software terminologies. So multicasting is you can send data to multiple subscribers at once. Okay. There are many message queues and there are many applications for this kind of scenarios, even in your WhatsApp, right? So if you have a group, right, so when you send a message to the group, and group exists only logically, okay, physically WhatsApp group doesn't exist. So WhatsApp group is a group of people together. So basically it will not create the contacts again, right? It will not add the persons, it will just add the persons to the group. But when you send hi or hello in from one person, and the message will be sent across to all the persons individually, right? So at the same time. So this is basically called multicasting.
Mhm.
So in here also, some scenarios we might want to share data to multiple components at same time, same data. So in those cases, we use observables and subjects. Okay. So um, and observables and subjects, the one important thing is you have to subscribe to this. Okay, so you create a observable or subject, and then the person or the component which wants to use that data has to subscribe to this observables or the subject. So then only it will receive the data when data comes from the server or some from other service. Okay. And it is like it's kind of an asynchronous programming. Okay, asynchronous means the data sent to the observable or subject side, so they are async. When you just send it, and they'll be sent across to the all the subscribers. Okay, and it will not wait for anything. If you just send data to the observable, that will send to the all the subscribers. And assume that these are like a pipeline. Okay, so one end you put message and the other end it will receive. Sometimes there will be multiple ends. Okay, so starting point will be same, but there will be multiple ends. So it's like a pipeline with multiple streams. So you can send data to the source, and other side all the subscribers will receive data, just like tap water. So tap water source will be one. Basically in one place they'll send the filter water into the pipeline, but in the village everyone will receive that water stream, right? So just like that, observables and subjects are basically it can be unicast or it can be multicasting or broadcasting. So now basically the terminology is observables as two like multiple terminologies, but one thing is whoever sends that data, right? So that is called a provider and or producer, and whoever receives the data, right? So they are called observers. So basically they'll be observing for any messages coming to that observable. So that's the reason we call observer, and whoever sends that data, we call it observable or like a provider. Okay, sorry, producer. So it produces messages, and the observer receives it, or subscriber. You can call it subscriber. So producer and subscriber.
So observable
And
is and observer is a subscriber.
yes, observable is a producer, observer is a subscriber. Okay. So now you can ask me what is the difference between observable and a subject? So observable, basically, there are two parts in observable. Observable, you have to have a separate producer, and you have to have a separate subscribers. But whereas in subject, both will be there in one place. So you can say a subject is a combination of observable and observer. Okay, that's the reason you have a method to send data. I mean, using the next method, you can send data, and using the subscribe method, you can receive data. But here, you can send data to the observer, and you can subscribe here, and so that you can receive data. So that these methods, right? Subscribe, next, error, complete. So here we have 3 methods. Here we have 1 method. But whereas in subject we have all the methods here. So that means same subject you can use for sending data and receiving
okay.
data also. So this is unicasting. Unicasting means means one, right? So one place to another place. Multicasting means one place to not one place, multiple places to multiple places. Okay. So this is the thing. So if they ask about there are like multiple types of subjects also. Do we have that? Okay, so here is subject observable example. So observable example is little tricky, but whereas subject example is very easy because it will have both, right? So it can be a producer, it can be a subscriber also. So now here, when you create a observable, then you have to take that observer the instance, and then you have to call the next method and send whatever data you want, and then finally you can say the pipeline is completed or the observer is completed. And to receive the message sent here, right? So you can basically do this. You can take the reference here and you can just subscribe to it, and then you get the data sent from here. So but whereas the subject, right? So you can create a subject like this, subject equal to new subject, and then in order to send data, you can basically do subject dot next. Okay, you can send any number of data. It's like a stream, right? So unless until you call a complete method, it will keep on. That pipeline is still open. You can send data as long as you need, and then finally, when you don't need it, you can say complete. Complete means you can close that pipeline. And to subscribe, you have to call the, again, just like observable, you have to call the subscribe method, and the subscribe method will have one parameter. It will return the value. So whatever value you are sending will be coming here. So if you, when you print it, so this value will be printed. Okay. So if you ask me, this is the easiest thing when compared to the observable. Okay. Now there are multiple types of subjects. There are like 3-4 types of subjects. Yeah, here we have that. So one is the behavior subject. So behavior subject will have a default value. Okay. Normally the subject doesn't have any default value, right? So we go here, subject doesn't have any default value here. It is empty. Okay, it is null. But whereas types of subject, the behavior subject, right? So it will have a default value. Okay, I just initialized with the 0, but it can be object, or it can be a string, or it can be anything. Okay, so now whenever you subscribe to that subject, this value will be given by default. When you just subscribe it, that 0 will be given by default. Okay, and let's say so here, right? So we subscribed it, and when we subscribed it, immediately we get 0, value 0. So we'll be printing 0 here. But after I sent 1 here, then when I subscribe it in the this below line, I'll be getting 1. And when I subscribe it here, so now the value will be 2. Okay, so it will always have the last value. Okay, so first you have to initialize with some value, and after that it will always have last value. Okay, now here we subscribe, it will print 0 first, and here we are sending 1. So 1 will be printed again, and we are sending 2, and 2 will be printed again. And now we have another client, another subscriber. Okay, so now when another subscriber comes, it will give only the 2, whatever last value. Okay, now we are sending next 3. Now this will print 3, and this will print 3 again. Okay, So you understood the flow?
Mm-hmm.
So if you subscribe at the first, after it created, it will give you this value, and from that point onwards, whenever you send data, the data will go here and it will get printed. But in the middle somewhere, somewhere in the stream, you another subject, another subscriber comes, then only the last value. So last value meaning only this one, right? Just before this one, so that value will be printed. And after that, if you send any data, the both subscribers will receive that data.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is behavior subject. And repay subject is similarly this one, but basically you can enter any number of last values to be remembered. Okay, I said here 2, so now it will have last 2 values instead of one value. This is one value, right? So it will have last 2 values. So if you see the same example, here it will print nothing, because we didn't initialize, right? It doesn't have any message so far. This is just we are telling how many values to remember. This is not an initialization. Okay, but here it is an initialization. So now what will happen? I send 1, I send 2, I send 3. Now all these 3 values will be printed 1, 2, 3 sequentially, and then new subscriber comes here. So that time what will happen? It will print last 2 values here, 2 and 3. Okay. Now 4 and 5 data is sent to the subjects. Now 4 by 4 5 sent here and 4 5 sent here, 2 values. Okay. So the only difference is the number of values to be remembered. Last number of values to be remembered. When if I say 1 here, it will behave just like behavior subject. If I send 3 here, then it will remember last 3 values. Okay. So this last 3 values will be coming to the new subscribers who are coming. Okay, not the existing subscribers. Existing subscribers, it doesn't make any sense, because existing subscribers will receive only for the first time when it is subscribing. Last 2 values it will receive only when it is subscribing. Okay, so this replace subject or behave subject, right? Only this will be this will make sense when a new subscriber is coming to the list. That time only this will print last value. This will print last number of values you initialized. If you initialize to last 2 values, it will print here, because this is a new subscriber. Okay. And we have async subject, and async subject. Okay, async subject sends only the latest value to subscribers when it is completed. Okay, so basically the advantage of this one, right? When you're typing something, okay, normally type ahead or like the auto suggestion, auto complete scenarios. When you start typing something, and for each key entry, let's say you type hello, and for each letter HELLLO, right? So around like five times backend call will be made to fetch list of matched suggestions. So like too many calls. So for single browser, single application, or for single user, if it's calling like 5-6 times, if let's say that application has thousands of users, then there will be too much of load on the server, right? So in order to avoid those, basically we can use this async subject. It will basically get only last data. You can say hello, but it will not consider first 4 calls. It will just wait for the time, and then when you say hello, only last time it will take the full value hello, and it will send to the backend service. So basically we reduce it from 6 backend calls to 1 call. Okay, in those cases we can use the async subject. So they'll ask sometimes they'll ask about can you explain the subject types? Okay, so this is the important thing. They'll definitely ask about this one. When they touch base subjects, definitely they'll ask about difference between a subject and observable, and then they'll ask about types of subjects. Okay, so any questions so far?
No,
Okay,
I
cool.
have to go through subject and observable once again. Your
Yeah,
video.
yeah, exactly. You have to. So yeah, so let's continue from again like next session. We
Mm.
have left with routing and forms. Yeah,
And modules. Yeah.
yeah, modules anyhow it's a easy concept, right? So you just group components and services directives in separate like feature modules. So this is easy. Only thing important is this authentication authorization, and then that's it. HTTP module also easy.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. Some questions coming from here like how to validate a React form, or and they will not ask about specific React form. They can just say how can you create a form and add validations, custom validations.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think next 2 to 3 sessions we'll be able to finish the all the concepts.
Okay.